Chosen one. There are moments when heaven quietly closes one spiritual chapter before opening another, and almost no one recognizes the transition while it is happening. They continue living as though nothing has changed. They wake up, follow the same routine, carry the same worries, and believe tomorrow will simply become another copy of yesterday. But every so often, time itself carries a different vibration. July 18th and July 19th are two of those rare moments. Before these dates ever appeared on your calendar, something had already begun unfolding beyond the limits of your physical senses. You didn't arrive here by coincidence. Out of all the voices competing for your attention, something deeper guided you toward this exact message because your spirit recognized this moment before your mind ever could. And if you've been feeling different lately, not just emotionally, but spiritually, if you've noticed yourself pulling away from people you once couldn't imagine living without, if your intuition has become louder than the opinions surrounding you, if your heart has started craving peace more than excitement, then don't ignore what is happening. These are not random emotions. They are the fingerprints of divine timing. They are the quiet evidence that heaven has already begun preparing you for a chapter your old identity could never have entered. Most people believe transformation begins when something extraordinary happens outside of them. Heaven works differently. It changes the invisible before it changes the visible. It strengthens the roots before allowing the tree to grow. It reshapes your spirit before reshaping your circumstances. That is why the greatest miracles almost always begin in silence. Long before anyone else notices your life changing, you begin noticing your reactions changing. Situations that once disturbed your peace suddenly lose their power. Conversations that once demanded explanations no longer deserve your energy. People whose approval once felt essential quietly become strangers to your emotional world. At first, this feels confusing. You wonder whether you've become emotionally distant. You wonder whether you've lost your passion. But the truth is far more beautiful than that. You are not becoming emotionally cold. You are becoming spiritually clear. There is a tremendous difference between the two. Spiritual clarity removes the need to chase what your soul has already outgrown. It teaches you that not every battle deserves your attention, not every invitation belongs to your destiny, and not every open door was sent by heaven. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not walking through the first opportunity that appears. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is having the courage to wait until peace confirms what excitement alone never could. That lesson becomes especially important between July 18th and July 19th because the heavens quietly begin shifting your focus from emotional survival toward spiritual stewardship. Mercury continues encouraging thoughtful reflection while the moon moves deeper into Virgo's practical wisdom, asking you to examine not simply what you believe, but how you are living those beliefs every single day. Because faith was never meant to remain an idea. Faith becomes powerful only when it begins shaping ordinary decisions. The way you protect your peace. The way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. The way you respond when life refuses to move according to your schedule. These ordinary moments quietly determine extraordinary futures. Chosen one. Perhaps that is why heaven has allowed certain prayers to remain unanswered longer than you expected. Not because you were forgotten, but because your character was still becoming strong enough to sustain the blessing you were asking for. Imagine handing the keys to a magnificent kingdom to someone who has never learned responsibility. The kingdom itself would become a burden instead of a blessing. Heaven understands this better than anyone. It prepares the heart before releasing the promise. It develops wisdom before increasing influence. It builds humility before opening greater doors. Looking back, you may finally begin recognizing that every delay carried hidden instruction. Every disappointment quietly redirected your path. Every season of loneliness taught you how to hear God's voice without depending on constant external reassurance. Nothing was wasted. Even the chapters you wished had never happened became part of the foundation beneath the person you are today. And now, as July 18th quietly moves toward July 19th, heaven asks a question that only your own heart can answer. If every painful season was secretly preparing you instead of punishing you, would you still call those seasons a failure? Or would you finally recognize them as the very reason your destiny remained protected until the perfect time? That question may become the beginning of everything that changes next. Chosen one. There is a reason heaven does not reveal the entire journey at once. If it did, Most people would spend more time fearing the distance than appreciating the direction. That is why divine timing has always unfolded one revelation at a time. First, heaven teaches you to let go. Then, it teaches you to trust. Only after trust becomes stronger than fear does it begin revealing the next assignment. That is exactly what July 18th and July 19th quietly represent. They are not simply another pair of dates moving across the calendar. They are the space between who you have been and who your spirit is finally ready to become. Most people will never recognize this transition because they continue measuring their lives only by visible results. They wake up asking, "What changed today?" Heaven asks a completely different question. What changed within you today? Because the answer to that question quietly determines every visible change that eventually follows. You may not realize it yet, but your greatest breakthrough has never depended upon one extraordinary opportunity. It has always depended upon one extraordinary decision, the decision to stop living according to yesterday's fears. Think carefully about the version of yourself that existed only a year ago. That person worried about things that no longer carry the same weight. That person searched endlessly for approval from people whose opinions barely matter to you now. That person believed certain doors had to open before life could finally begin. Yet here you are today, carrying wisdom that only difficult seasons could have taught you. You survived conversations that almost broke your spirit. You endured waiting seasons that tested every ounce of your faith. You walked through moments where heaven felt silent, yet somehow those very moments became the reason your spirit learned to hear a voice deeper than circumstances. None of that happened by accident. Heaven has never wasted a single season of your life. Even the chapters you would never choose to relive became classrooms where your soul quietly learned lessons that comfort could never teach. That is why these next 48 hours feel different. They are not asking you to return to old battles. They are asking you to recognize that those battles no longer define you. There is an invisible graduation taking place within your spirit. Graduation rarely feels dramatic while it is happening. It simply reaches a point where the lessons no longer need to repeat themselves. The tests lose their power because the student has finally become the person the lesson was trying to create. Chosen one. Perhaps that is exactly what is happening now. You have spent so much time asking heaven to remove the storm that you almost missed the greater miracle. Heaven was using the storm to transform the sailor. And once the sailor changes, even familiar waves can no longer carry the same power. During July 19th, the moon continues guiding your attention toward order, discernment, and practical wisdom. This is not emotional excitement. It is emotional stability. Spiritually, stability is one of the greatest blessings a person can receive because a stable heart is no longer controlled by every changing circumstance. Imagine a lighthouse standing beside the ocean. Every day, the waves change. The wind changes. The weather changes. Ships come and go. Storms arrive without warning. Yet the lighthouse remains exactly where it was built. It does not chase the ships. It does not argue with the storm. It simply continues shining because it understands that its purpose is not determined by what happens around it. Chosen one. Heaven has been quietly teaching you to become like that lighthouse. There was a time when every opinion around you changed the way you saw yourself. Every disappointment convinced you that perhaps you had misunderstood your purpose. Every delay tempted you to believe your destiny belonged to someone else. But not anymore. Something inside you has become steadier. Your peace is no longer borrowed from circumstances. It is beginning to grow from a place much deeper. That is one of the clearest signs that your soul has entered a different season. And perhaps the most remarkable part of all this is that almost nobody around you will immediately notice the transformation. They will continue speaking to you as though you are the same person you used to be. They will expect the same reactions. They will expect the same insecurities. They will expect the same emotional patterns. But quietly, without announcing it to anyone, heaven has already begun rewriting your identity. One day, they will wonder why you no longer respond the way you once did. They will wonder why chaos no longer attracts your attention. They will wonder why you stopped chasing what everyone else continues running after. The answer will be simple. Your spirit has finally recognized something more valuable than temporary excitement. It has recognized alignment. And once a chosen one experiences true alignment, there is no returning to the life that existed before it. Chosen one. Before July 18th quietly becomes July 19th, there is one final truth that heaven has been patiently waiting for you to understand. It is not hidden in the stars. It is not locked inside a prophecy. It has been growing inside your own spirit every time you chose faith over fear, every time you continued walking without knowing exactly where the road would lead. Most people spend their entire lives asking heaven for a miracle, never realizing that heaven has been shaping them into one. Miracles are not always events that happen around you. Sometimes the miracle is the person you become after surviving everything that should have destroyed you. Look back for a moment, chosen one. Think about the nights when you believed nothing would ever change. Think about the prayers that seemed to disappear into silence. Think about the relationships that ended without the closure you desperately wanted. At the time, every one of those moments felt like evidence that life was moving against you. But now, standing where you are today, can you see what heaven was quietly doing? Every disappointment removed a distraction. Every delay strengthened your patience. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every lonely season taught you how to find God's presence without depending on another person's approval. Nothing was meaningless. Even your tears became part of your preparation. Heaven has never wasted pain placed into willing hands. It transforms pain into wisdom, wisdom into character, and character into destiny. That is why these next 2 days feel unlike anything you've experienced recently. They are not asking you to become stronger. They are revealing the strength that has already been formed inside you through every hidden battle. There comes a point where a warrior no longer needs another battle to prove their courage. There comes a point where a healer no longer needs another wound to understand compassion. There comes a point where a chosen one no longer needs another sign because their spirit has finally learned to recognize heaven even in complete silence. July 19th carries exactly that kind of spiritual maturity. It gently reminds you that your future does not depend on constant reassurance. It depends upon consistent alignment. That is why the energy surrounding these hours feels calmer than the weeks before them. The urgency begins dissolving. The desperate need to control every outcome slowly disappears. Instead, something deeper takes its place. Quiet confidence. Not confidence that everything will happen exactly the way you imagined, but confidence that whatever heaven has prepared can never be taken away by delay, confusion, or another person's opinion. Imagine standing beside a massive oak tree that has survived hundreds of storms. Every season tried to change it. Powerful winds bent its branches. Heavy rain soaked its roots. Winter stripped away every leaf it possessed. Yet year after year it remained standing. Why? Because its strength was never created by perfect weather. Its strength was created by surviving imperfect seasons. Chosen one, heaven has been growing those same roots inside you. There were moments when you believed life was breaking you apart, but in reality, it was planting you deeper into purpose. That is why the storms no longer frighten you the way they once did. Somewhere along the journey, your spirit stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and quietly began asking, "What is heaven preparing me for through this?" That single question changed everything. Because the moment suffering becomes preparation instead of punishment, fear begins losing its authority. During these next hours, pay close attention to what brings genuine peace into your life. Not temporary excitement, not emotional intensity, peace. The moon's continued movement through Virgo quietly reminds you that the strongest foundations are built through ordinary choices repeated with extraordinary faith. A healthy boundary, an honest conversation, a decision to protect your peace instead of protecting someone else's expectations. These moments may appear small while they are happening, but they quietly become the architecture of your future. Destiny is rarely built through one spectacular event. More often, it is built through hundreds of faithful decisions that nobody else notices until years later. And perhaps that is the greatest message hidden inside July 18th and July 19th. Heaven has never been asking you to become perfect before your purpose could begin. It has only been asking you to remain faithful while your spirit continued growing. As these 2 remarkable days slowly come to an end, remember this truth above everything else. You are no longer the person who first began praying for this new chapter. The waiting changed you. The silence changed you. The hidden seasons changed you. And because you changed, the future waiting ahead of you has also changed. Heaven is not leading the old version of you toward tomorrow. It is leading the stronger, wiser, more peaceful version it has been quietly creating all along. So stop asking whether your breakthrough is still coming. Start recognizing that every step you've taken through faith has already become part of that breakthrough. Continue walking with courage. Continue protecting your peace. Continue trusting the timing that heaven has written long before you ever understood it. Because somewhere beyond July 19th, a chapter is waiting where the prayers you once whispered through tears will become the testimony that reminds you God was working. Even during every moment you believed nothing at all was happening. Chosen one. There's one final layer to this message that cannot be understood through logic alone. It must be felt. Throughout these past 2 days, heaven has not simply been preparing your future. It has been preparing you to carry it. Those are not the same thing. Many people pray for greater influence while refusing the discipline that influence requires. They ask for abundance while resisting the wisdom needed to protect it. They ask for purpose while remaining attached to the comfort that purpose eventually demands they leave behind. Heaven, however, never separates the blessing from the person who must carry it. It develops them together. That is why your journey has unfolded exactly as it has. Every delay added another layer of strength. Every unanswered question deepened your faith. Every season of silence taught you how to hear God's direction without depending on constant confirmation. Looking back now, you may finally realize that the greatest gift heaven ever gave you was not the answer you wanted. It was the transformation that happened while you were waiting for the answer. Without that transformation, the blessing itself might have become another burden. But now something has changed. The person standing here today is no longer the same soul who first began asking for a new beginning. Your vision has matured. Your discernment has sharpened. Your priorities have quietly shifted away from temporary excitement toward lasting peace. This is not weakness. It is spiritual authority growing beneath the surface. Authority never begins with power. It begins with responsibility. Heaven entrusts greater things only to hearts that have learned to protect small things faithfully. During July 19th, that lesson becomes beautifully clear. You may suddenly notice that the opportunities attracting your attention are different than before. They no longer appeal to your ego. They speak directly to your spirit. The conversations that matter most are no longer the loudest ones. They are the quiet moments where truth reveals itself without needing to defend its existence. The people meant to remain in your life begin bringing peace instead of confusion. The doors truly prepared for you no longer require you to abandon your integrity in order to walk through them. That is one of the clearest signs that heaven has begun aligning your external life with the internal transformation it has patiently completed. There is another mystery hidden inside these days that very few people ever recognize. Sometimes heaven delays visible success because invisible character is still being written. Imagine constructing the tallest building in an entire city. No architect begins with the highest floor. They spend months strengthening a foundation that nobody celebrates because they understand one unchanging truth. The greater the structure, the deeper the foundation must become. Chosen one. Perhaps that has been your story all along. While you were wondering why your life seemed slower than everyone else's, heaven was simply digging deeper than everyone else could see. Others celebrated visible progress while your unseen foundation quietly became strong enough to support something far greater than immediate success. One day, people will admire the building without realizing how much invisible work existed beneath it. They will call you fortunate without understanding the hidden seasons that prepared you. But heaven remembers every hidden season. Heaven remembers every tear that nobody else witnessed. Every prayer whispered after midnight. Every lonely decision to remain faithful when compromise appeared easier. None of it has been forgotten. In fact, those moments have become part of the very reason your future now stands where it does. And perhaps this is the message your heart was meant to receive before these 2 remarkable days come to an end. Stop measuring your journey against people who were never assigned your calling. Stop comparing your calendar to souls carrying completely different assignments. Every chosen life follows its own divine rhythm. Rivers never apologize because mountains rise more quickly. Stars never compete with the sunrise. Each fulfills its purpose according to the timing written into creation itself. Your destiny follows exactly the same law. What belongs to you will arrive neither too early nor too late. It will arrive when your spirit and the blessing are finally prepared to meet one another. As July 18th quietly gives way to July 19th, carry this truth with you into every decision that follows. Protect your peace more fiercely than your image. Guard your faith more carefully than your reputation. Choose alignment over urgency. Choose wisdom over impulse. Choose obedience over fear. Because heaven is not asking you to become someone extraordinary overnight. It is asking you to remain faithful one ordinary day at a time. And those ordinary days, lived with extraordinary trust, quietly become the life you once believed only existed in your prayers. So, chosen one, keep walking, keep trusting, keep listening when the world becomes quiet. Because the same God who prepared you through every hidden season is already preparing the next chapter beyond July 19th. And when that chapter finally opens, you will not step into it as the person who once begged for a miracle. You will step into it as the miracle heaven has been patiently creating all along.